Kevin from beautiful Show Low, Arizona. He said, thought exercise here. We go 3 years into the future. Let's say there's an elite program that isn't one right now. What would be your guess as to which team it is? This is a beautifully constructed question. We're looking 3 years into the future. Kevin's flat out saying 3 years down the road, 2028, there's a program that is elite by them that's not elite right now. Who is it going to be? Well, I think it's LSU, if I had to guess. Now, what we did here to define elite, Kevin didn't do this, but we did this, is I told Jesse, give me all the top 10 winning percentages over the past few years. Let's just exclude those teams. So we don't come down in this argument of is Penn State elite or not. They've got a top 10 winning percentage last 4 years, so they're excluded. They're already in the club. Let's pretend that this graphic Colin is showing you on the screen right now is the head table of college football. So we got Georgia, Michigan, Ohio State, Bama, Oregon, Notre Dame, Ole Miss, Penn State, Clemson, Tennessee. Congratulations, everyone. You have a seat at the table that everyone else wants to be at. Okay, so Kevin's telling us there's going to be an addition to this table that's not there right now. Whomst is it going to be? I think LSU just easily is my number one choice for someone who's not there because they're almost there already. The last few years, they've won 9 games this past year, 10 games the year before, 10 games the year before that. They are a very good recruiter. They're a really good portal team. They've made really good organizational moves. I still believe in Brian Kelly. People call me stupid, but whatever. I still believe in Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly's going to have a lot of that, I wouldn't say Ryan Day energy about him because Ryan Day has not been around nearly as long as Brian Kelly. And when people were saying Ryan Day hasn't won the big one, we knew Ryan Day still had a ton of years left. Brian Kelly's been around forever. Brian Kelly, go to his Wikipedia page after the show and check out how long he's been a head coach. But yet he's still not, quote unquote, won the big one, not won a national championship. But yet I've always believed he can. Still believe he can. Again, you can label me however you want to. So, plus it's LSU. Like, every coach that's capable of walking and chewing gum at the same time has won a national championship down there since the turn of the millennium. That's not pejorative in nature. It's just really true. Everyone's done it, which speaks to the fact that that purple and gold is a very strong brand. I gave you a pause in case you need to use it in marketing materials down there. Yes, you have our express consent to do so. I think. Let me check with CBS. I think, though. And then secondly, I don't think that Brian Kelly's an idiot. So it's not that any idiot could do it per se, but it's LSU. LSU's a machine. You just kind of have to, you got to steer it the right way. I think Brian Kelly can do that. But I thought to myself, that segment sucks if you just name one team. So Kevin said, well, let's say a program's elite in 3 years that's not right now. Who else could it be? Could be Miami. Now I'm going to pause for a different reason because a lot of you are just yelling. It happens every time we bring Miami up on the show, which is, I guess, a good thing because it means no one's indifferent on Miami. Small group of people love them. A massive army of people hate them, and I just discuss them. Friends of the program, though, we hang out down there anytime we go to South Florida. So, hey, I root for Miami to be great. I would love to see them at this head table. I almost think you have to have a reintroduction course. Colin, is that a Miami helmet? Sure enough, we got one back there. But we have several other helmets back there, so no one can claim favoritism, of course. I mean, far be it for us to show that sort of thing. I would love Miami to be at the head table again. Few reasons. I would love to know, would they sell Hard Rock Stadium out regularly if they were elite? That's a great unknown. Part two is I think there is a vast swath of our younger audience that just has no concept of what it's like when Miami's good. You want to feel toxicity. You want to feel hatred. You want to feel like a real, like, vitriolic, guttural hatred of a program. Check out the pulse of a majority of America when Miami's elite. You just haven't lived it in your life. That's not your fault. That's their fault. They've been so terrible for large portions of your life. But if you're 20 years old, like, we got a massive 18 to 34-year-old audience that cannot even recall what it's like when Miami's elite. So this is not a guarantee that it's going to happen, but Kevin's saying if it happens, who could it be? Well, where do you have the overlap of commitment and talent level that you're going to have there? That doesn't guarantee wins. I know it doesn't. I'm going to save you guys time in the comments. I'm going to do something most people don't do. I'm going to say, save your comment. just forget about that part of the engagement. If all you're going to tell me is, well, that doesn't guarantee anything, I know that. I got talented teams going 6-6 every year across this country. I know that. But I also, I know the commitment level down there. I know that they will not stop being very, very rabid about that stuff until they get it right or die trying. And they'll have really good players in the building. So does it guarantee anything? I think this is the third time in a minute I've said this. No. But it could happen. You remember Kevin's question. It could happen. What about USC? I said something about Brian Kelly. I'm going to say it about Lincoln Riley. I have not given up on Lincoln Riley. Sue me. So with USC, this past year they lost a lot of close games, which means they lost games. That's really all that means. Everything else is excuse making. But they lost a lot of close games. That makes the record 7-6. So I am not a believer that you are what your record says you are in predictability terms. If USC got blown out 6 times versus USC lost by a field goal 6 times, it still makes them 7-6 in the past year, but one bodes much better for the future than the other, if that makes any sense. I think it does. So USC, not nearly as dire as it appeared last year, but it's still not good. Because USC, if they're operating the way they should, 4 of those 6 games probably should not be close to begin with. Therefore, you're not in any threat to lose those games. They've made some really, I won't say desperate, but I would say very, very needed organizational moves lately. A year ago, Lincoln Riley overhauled his defensive staff, kind of the same time Brian Kelly was doing that. So both of them realized we are failing ourselves and our kids and our program and our organization and our fans defensively. Boom, hit the flush button. Immediate dividends paid. More so on the LSU side when it comes to wins and losses than USC. But several organizational moves, I think, reflect over the past 2 cycles that Lincoln Riley he's not sitting still. He's not out there with the mentality that it's my way is going to work or, you fire me, whatever. I got a big buyout. That's not the energy. I've not loved the energy. Like I've not been crazy about it. But the question was if someone becomes elite down the road. This is still USC. And the pressure that's being applied by the likes of Oregon, not to mention even if Oregon was bad right now, just the fact that you joined the Big Ten and you're not close to the best of the best in that conference right now, it should put pressure on you. I don't care if it's Southern California or not. It should put pressure on you, and it does. And you've got a guy, don't forget about the personal side of this. You've got a guy in Lincoln Riley who was a winner as soon as he became a head coach. He was a winner, and he's not one right now on the only board that counts, the scoreboard, but he's a competitor, and that just eats at you. It eats at you even if no one's trashing you on a message board. And it eats at you even if no one's booing you on the way up the tunnel. But they are doing those things. But even if they weren't, the mirror is what you have to answer to. And what's looking back at Lincoln Riley is not producing good enough results right now. He knows it before anyone tells him. So because of all of those things, and because it is still USC, and that means a lot to me, it could be them. You know who else it could be? Kevin? It could be Florida. It could be Florida. There is a lot of skill in doing something that a lot of you are having to do around the South right now. Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, all the way up through the Ohio River Valley. It's maybe rain, it's maybe snow, but there's just a ton of bad weather across the eastern half of the United States right now. And a lot of you are going to have to once again learn a valuable lesson Meemaw taught me a long time ago. There is a lot to be gained by just being able to drive 42 miles an hour. You don't want to. You don't want to be driving 42. It's going to take a lot longer to get where you want to go driving 42. And you're going to see people fly past you. And you know what? Some of them may get home before you do. Others may be in the ditch a couple of miles down the road or worse. And you just 10 and 2, white knuckle your way past them. But you're still going 42. But the thing about it is bad weather always clears eventually. And if you're still on the road and you're still going 42, guess what gets to happen then? You get to speed up a little bit, and now we're 52, and now we're 62. DJ Lagway, you want to hop in? I've got room for you. I've got DJ Lagway in the passenger seat now. Wow, we're going fast. It's kind of how Florida's season felt this past year, by the way. 42 miles an hour. Got blown out by Miami at home. We got hot seat talk. It's all but a formality. Billy Napier is going to get fired. but he didn't. And then they had the audacity to compete and keep winning, and then winning some more, and then winning a little bit more than that. And they ended the season somehow as one of the hottest teams in the country. A lot of that is coming back. Made some coaching moves, made some staff moves. You know, I already think very highly of their organization, and I've been saying that even when their record's been terrible. So a lot of that's still there. It wouldn't shock me if we look 3 years down the road, and one of the big stories in college football is Florida stuck with Billy Napier, and look what happened. Kind of the way we were talking about Harbaugh a little while ago. Harbaugh, much further tenured into his coaching career than Billy Napier, but Harbaugh got questioned at Michigan. A lot of folks wanted to run Harbaugh out of town long before he started that 3 or 4 or whatever it was in a row against Ohio State, long before he won back-to-back Big Ten titles, won a national title. They wanted to run him out of town. Michigan didn't. And then no one wanted to admit they wanted to run him out of town years later because he had maize and blue confetti raining down on him. Well, what if Billy Napier does that? I'm going to talk about them a little bit more. I'm not going to go into great detail here, but there are several indicators that would lead you to believe Florida. I know they play an NFL schedule basically again this year, and so it's easy to overlook them. But if you look at college football not in an individualized vacuum, but in a comparative landscape, Florida's doing some things at a higher level than most of the country's doing it. It's just that for 2 years in a row now, the schedule is such that even if you are doing it at a high level, 8 wins may be a good indicator of that. And then you got the "you are what your record says you are" crowd that says just that. You are what your record says you are. I got like 5 more here. I'm going to breeze through these. By the way, if you're watching, check and see if you're subscribed. I think about half of you are. The other half aren't. It costs you nothing to subscribe. Doesn't sign you up for anything. No robocalls, no emails. It just helps us, and that's it. That's how we keep the show free. So I would humbly appreciate it. Podcast or YouTube, subscribe. Texas A&M, I'm not going down this road again. I have talked about A&M's potential as a program ad nauseum, which I used to call at nauseum until way too late in my life, honestly. But everything's there. No one who disagrees with me on this has yet to provide me information that leads me to believe otherwise. So everything that's needed is there. Just hasn't happened yet because they hadn't had the right head coach over there. I would mention Auburn here. Still a bridge a little bit too far. Georgia Tech's a big sleeper program for me on this front. Louisville's got the most underrated head coach in the country, and they're quietly a player every year. It wouldn't shock me if Washington was in this conversation with Jed Fish if he stays up there long enough. Nebraska's a fascinating wild card team. And then there's Oklahoma, who I didn't mention, and I'm not going to mention, but I should be mentioning, because there's no reason for me to have doubts about Oklahoma. But I have a little bit of doubt about Oklahoma. The fan base has doubt about Oklahoma right now. But just as much as you have doubt right now, there's so many built-in advantages of being at Oklahoma that it could be turned around. It should be turned around. Brent Venables goes over there. He goes 6-7. But then he's 10-3 the next year, and everyone thinks, all right, we're off and running, and then 6-7 happens again. And so what is this supposed to mean? Are we just going to go barely a bowl team to double-digit wins cyclically every other cycle? Redundant. Well, hey, if so, 2025 is going to be a great year. I don't know. I don't know about Oklahoma, so that's where I'll leave it. I don't know. But the others, yeah, if we're adding some elite programs down the road, I could see any of those.